It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy's here. Alex is here. Jason Snell's got the day off. He's down in Cupertino, of course. And Mikah Sargent's here. We'll talk about all the announcements Apple made yesterday at WWDC. Each of us has a different point that we thought was the highlight of the keynote. You'll hear all about that. And then a tribute to a Macintosh legend. What more can I say? All of that coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 976, recorded Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Thanks for all the round rects. It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Hello, everybody. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest Apple news, and there is Apple news. So much Apple news that Jason Snell is in Cupertino, which means we get the pleasure of Mikah Sargent.
Hello, I appear. Beckon,
Mikah.
I appear.
Hello, Mikah. He was with me yesterday as we watched the reveal of Liquid Glass.
Liquid Glass and Liquid, never mind. We also watched afterward the Platform State of the Union together, and I think we both tuned out of Platform State of the Union.
I was paying attention while I
played. We were.
Word with Friends. Also here, Andy Anako. He's in the library as usual. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. Yeah, I actually have a little desktop gadget in my office and a mobile one for here when I'm out of the office that lights up when I'm watching like one of these developer keynote videos or one of those developer session videos that says, yeah, you only think you understand what they're talking about. So shh.
It should hit you on the head is what it should do to wake you up. Anyway, thank you for being here. And also, Alex Lindsay, you did your office hours post show, did you not?
We did. We had extra hours, and we had Oliver Breidenbach from Boinks on, as well as Adam Tao from who does Mix Effect, and Marcelo Moyana, who does Stream Voodoo. And so we had some developers. So
the
it was
actual
great
developers on, yeah,
having them get their opinion about some of the stuff that they were looking at.
What were they excited about?
They're definitely, I mean, it's all different things, but a lot of them are the app intents is something that a lot of them are thinking about as far as what that looks like. I definitely think that for some of these things, the AI assistant, being able to put anything in. So we talked about what it takes to
have access now to the
inside
Apple
of Xcode to
models
be able to
inside your apps.
Yeah, and that was a big discussion point, was being able to, and we think that that's what's really going to grow over time for developers is the ability to not have to write all the code or do all the other things that they need to do, not have to pay something outside. There's many basic decisions that are a little bit more than algorithms, but not super heavy lifting AI that is very, very useful from a developer perspective, and being able to do that right on device without having to pay for tokens and so on and so forth is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Especially at scale.
Yeah. I think the thing that Mikah and I got most excited about was a complete redesign of iPadOS.
Woo!
I feel like almost it was the last thing they talked about. It could have been the one more thing. And I think they buried the lead because that's a huge shift for the iPad.
I think it was the biggest jump towards the Mac that we've seen the iPad take.
Yeah.
So that movement was you definitely, with now having Windows and having better file management. I think that we're 2 years away from if you were going to get a MacBook Air, and you have an iPad as another option, you have to think hard about it. Like I think that if they keep going
if you want touch, you get the Air.
Exactly.
I mean, the iPad.
And there's a lot of things that are easier with the iPad. If you want to pull your keyboard off and watch it, use it as different things, I think that the iPad has a lot of advantages.
Yeah. I think the big boy feature, of course, is the new windowing system. They still have Stage Manager in there, but they're going to give you really effectively a windowing system just like any PC, with floating windows you can move around of arbitrary size. And I don't know what the maximum is, but you could see on their quilt 5 different windows open. They also have a menu bar, which is hysterical. It's centered. Yeah. There's no Apple in it, and it's centered. But know about this iPad, but that's a menu bar.
There's I think that any commentary on the UI changes with Liquid Glass and otherwise, of course, has to start and end with, yeah, but this is just the first cut at it. We don't know and they're going to listen to feedback. Yeah, I'll say that, gosh, menu in both iPadOS and macOS, they decided to be a little freaky with the menu bars, and that's going to take a lot of getting used to.
Of course, immediately I saw people say, "Oh, accessibility! This is terrible for accessibility." The new Liquid Glass.
I do actually, Stephen.
But there'll be a switch. There's got to be a switch.
Yeah, Stephen Aquino, who was like one of my favorite, along with Shelley Brisbane, one of my favorite writers about Apple accessibility, actually bumped into like the head of accessibility at Apple after the keynote and asked her like, what are we going to be good? And she confirmed that, yeah, all the settings that are in normal Mac OS today that allow you to basically adjust the UI to enable accessibility for people with all kinds of vision and all vision differences are going to be enabled. So you will be able to disable, deactivate, customize, tweak, whatever you can do today. You'll be able to do that in 26 with Liquid Glass.
So we'll get back to Liquid Glass, iPadOS, but before I want to show you something while he's still here. Coming to us from a forest somewhere nearby, Anthony Nielsen wearing his Vision Pro with the brand new, all new Persona that actually, first of all, looks like you, Anthony.
That looks a lot more like Anthony, yeah.
Sounds like you. Still a little bit blurry, but boy, that's realistic. When you squint, when you wink your eye, you see wrinkles, and I mean, it looks real. That's pretty good.
Better.
I think that's
definitely
so much more misty and blurred, and the person vaguely looked like themselves. But now I could recognize that
it's not so creepy.
Like it's someone's high school photo, and they're dreaming about that person. In the background, it's kind of
it's a dream. Like you're in a dream, Anthony. No, but I think it's much more usable. Much more usable. So, in fact, I think that was the single biggest
hands.
Oh, and the other thing that Anthony's really excited about is the ability, and this was rumored before, to use the PlayStation VR2 Sense controller. So you now have controllers for your hands, which is important for gaming, I think.
One thing that a lot of us found, a bunch of us got into after hours or in office hours during the show, and we were all just watching it. And one of the things that was funny is as soon as we saw them drawing in 3D, everyone searched for the Logitech Muse, and there was nothing. Nothing was there. Like there was,
this is the pencil that they showed.
The pencil, but they didn't. But the Logitech Muse, they didn't have a
doesn't
website.
Exist.
It now does. There's now a webpage, and there was like this 6-line press release that says this will be available later this year. So obviously, Logitech didn't have all their ducks in a row when this was.
You're going to talk about it,
but.
Why would you want this as a design tool? It's
like
you draw in the air.
I saw that. I was like, take my money. Like, just this is like it. I'm ready to. I'll pay for it now and wait for 6 months for this. I mean, if it was a Kickstarter. So the problem is that we've had Meta had this, Oculus had this, HTC has it, where you can take the controllers and you have these little pointers and you can kind of paint, but it feels like you're drawing with bricks. And being able to have a pen and be able to do it like it's basically like a Wacom tablet, but in 3D. And being able to draw and to do those things is going to be, and there's some great. I already watched a talk. One of the sessions was about how to build your own sculpting tool with it. So it has haptic response. So it's a pen, and as you hit the surface, it vibrates to let you know you're pushing into the surface.
Neat.
Yeah.
That's neat.
And so it is, and this is the beginning.
Or you could draw on an actual surface, and then you would really know.
Yeah,
but I don't want to be a skeptic.
The thing is that when you're trying to clay is pretty it's messy,
right?
So
now you can draw on clay and not be messy.
But again, when you start doing character development and character design and so on and so forth, like they're showing like little let's just play and make push some stuff.
Well, it's kind of like squidge when you push it into the clay and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
Push it. So there's
it?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There have been. I was in an R&D facility in the late 90s that had this, but it had gloves that would actually push back against your fingers.
Gloves, yeah.
SGI, and it's like a $4 million room. And it was a huge cable that came down from the ceiling that was suspended on a helmet, and you'd go, give me a sphere this big, and when you grabbed onto the vertices, you could feel them as you pulled them apart. And I was like, this is going to be the future of modeling. We're 25 years later, almost 30 years later, we still haven't seen it. But this is almost all the character, when you look at a 3D model of characters for Marvel or for Star Wars or whatever, almost all of them are being sculpted in 3D, and they're using, a lot of them are there are a variety of proprietary tools. The most popular public tool is called ZBrush, and ZBrush lets you paint into 3D, and so this is going to let you do that. But the problem really is when you're doing it in ZBrush, when you're painting in ZBrush, the problem is you have this 2D flat plane that you're sitting there drawing through, and you have to kind of think about it. Whereas this is going to let you walk around it, look at it, sculpt it. I think that it's going to be pretty powerful. And again, it's not that it hasn't been possible before, but the tools were really pretty crude in Oculus and HTC, and using those controllers just felt like you were drawing with a rock all the time. So I think that this, now what they're showing it for is just measuring things and drawing things out and everything else, and that's great too. But I think that there's a lot that's going to happen with this, with starting to have better controls.
In order to make this and the PlayStation controllers work, they had to increase the frame rate of the hand tracking to 90 hertz, which is, everybody's very excited about that. Right, Anthony? You're excited about that. 90 hertz. Holy cow. It's much smoother, I guess.
I mean,
more
the
detail.
gaming experience as it wasn't
You
too
need
great.
that. Yeah. Also, look to scroll, and we were all wondering, how the hell's that going to work? Do you look at the scroll bar and then go up and down with your eyes?
What is that like?
I guess if you're looking at a scrollable page, if you look down, it'll go down. I
haven't done anything in here besides create the
you had to
persona.
put the developer beta on there.
I just got it on like an hour ago, so I haven't really messed around.
You know what? The other thing that's very impressive, and they talked a little bit about this happening to the AirPods later this year, the audio quality in your Vision Pro is very good. You sound like you're on a mic.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what I sound like, but from what
I could tell you sound very good. That's, I don't know. Is that better than it was, Alex? It sounds like
Apple's been doing. I don't know if it's any better. Apple does an incredible job at the
parsing.
I called my wife and she picked up. I said, "What are you talking on?" And she's like, "My watch."
Yeah, no, that's true.
So a lot of the algorithms that they're using have gotten extremely good at getting rid of reflection, getting rid of exterior noise. All of those things have gotten much better. And so I think that this is just another. I think those things are crossing over between the iPad and the MacBooks and the watch and the phone, and the Apple's probably the best at it right now as far as a piece of hardware that does it.
Wow. Yeah. So anyway, that was our back door to the Vision Pro segment. Sorry about that. But I didn't want Anthony to have to stay in that thing all day. So I was just really impressed with the all new personas, the new controllers, the higher frame rate. It's also, couldn't you stick a clock to the wall before? I know you could leave your apps before.
It's such not. I've talked to a couple of people that are pretty excited about it. It's just so not how I use my Vision Pro that I would care about where things are. I don't put it on and walk around the room and go to a bunch of other places. But I
remember Jason Snell losing his settings in the garage.
Yeah, but especially after
you tap
reboot,
the crown. I have
definitely lose tracking of stuff.
So this preserves it past a reboot, like it just keeps it.
From what I understand, it's like it'll pin to that like specific room. And before you would see things in other rooms, even when you left that room, like through the wall. But now, it like you won't see everything in your house, even though you're second one room.
That's a big.
I see. Okay, so
now we understand.
The actual sort of structure of the home obscures. Yeah, because I can remember going upstairs and looking down and still seeing that in the living room there was a screen there, and now it would be obscured by the actual floor, which is nice. So really quick though, it sounds like the both of you are saying it's very rare that you ever move around in it. It's more of a stationary device for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really designed that way. So there are reasons to do it. There are, so there's things like if you use something like JigSpace, you might want to walk around something, but you need kind of an open space to do that. There are things you want to show if you want to be shown something, but rarely am I. Like my use case is usually I find a comfortable place with a lot of open space around me so that I can look at stuff. But I'm usually, the immersive stuff is expecting you to, in fact, it warns you if you start moving. It starts to like, hey, I don't think you should do that. You can't see anything. And then a lot of the other viewing, if I'm watching a movie, I'm creating a virtual 200-inch screen in front of me and watching a film. So those are the kind of things that I'm not really moving for. There's one app that Adam Savage talked about, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, that X-rays your whole house as you walk around. That one you walk around a lot.
I've seen a demo of that. Yeah, it's like a photogrammetry kind of thing almost.
Well, it's using the LiDAR for it, and it just slowly builds a mesh of your entire house as you walk through. And what's interesting is you see all these relationships between rooms that you didn't
know. On the other side of that wall is my garage.
In your head is like, I had this thing, like I have to run some wires to one of my rooms, and I thought I had to go through all this stuff, and I realized, oh no, that room is just sitting right over top of my basement. Like I can just go right up through the floor. But it's not how it lived in my head, like it was. And so it's fascinating.
There's some new environments. Anthony, the chat room's asking you to change your backdrop to Jupiter. Do you have Jupiter?
I haven't really messed with the Zoom app here, so I'm not exactly sure.
You know what's really cool? The lip sync is excellent. I'm thinking about 30, more than that, years ago when I played Dev Null and I had to wear a bodysuit.
Yeah,
and I had to have puppeteers, and I was hooked up to a Silicon Graphics Onyx, and the lip sync wasn't even close to this good.
Well, and this is good. I mean, of course, Epic released MetaHuman. I'm sure
there's even better now.
But Epic released MetaHuman last week, and it blew me away. Like
what would you wear to get MetaHuman? Would it just be a camera?
2 web cameras.
Wow.
Like 2 Brios, 2 little Brios.
The exact same
webcam
2 Brios
right and MetaHuman, you could be a virtual character.
It's a virtual face. So the one of them's pointed at your face, and the other one's pointed at your body. Wow. And the MetaHuman, you can build it, move it around, adjust it, and then say, okay, that's what I want. And it's already been rigged for you. So all you got to do now is apply motion capture to it. And again, it's really good in real time, and then it can do post processing to make it even better in post. So it's truly impressive. It's the demo that they did last week is one of the more amazing demos I've seen about doing animation, other than the thousands of Stormtrooper AI videos that came out over the weekend that were hilarious.
This is Unreal Engine 5, right?
5.6, I think.
Okay.
If you do a search for, like in the YouTube, if you do a search for the MetaHuman, there's like a 5-minute MetaHuman clip from the stage, from their keynote, and that's where you'll see the demo of it. That's just
so. Do you buy this? It's
free.
So can I put it
Epic?
Okay,
it's epic.
So I would put this on my laptop. Do I need Windows?
You could put it. Windows is going to run better. I think it will run on the Mac, but you really want like a game machine, like a 4090 card with it, or even a probably 2090 might 20.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a Linux box with all that fancy stuff in it.
I don't know what Unreal does with Linux, but it could work. And
it says it'll run on Linux. So
okay, there you go. Yeah.
And I would attach 2 cameras to that, and then I could be in it. I would like to have a virtual character. I'm just saying, then I wouldn't have to dress up.
Let's see if I can.
Let's turn this episode. Actually, we'll just
everybody put on their helmets.
Yeah, we'll walk Leo through the process of installing this, and we
won't do that. No.
How do you know that one of us isn't doing that already?
Speaking of content creation, they also said they're now going to support the Instacam. This is the X5 natively. Is that a big deal, Alex, for content creation? I don't have to buy an Ursa.
So they have to make it more available to other things. The one thing I haven't been able to drive down into is whether the Canon dual lenses are being supported in stereo. But what it means is that for Insta360 and the GoPros and the some of the Canons, you can
those
get
are much
the 360 and 180
than anything else. Right?
Yeah, it just makes it much easier for people. Well, the problem is that a lot of us can shoot that content, but trying to deliver that content to other people has become a real problem because
now they all have to have Vision Pros.
So now it's much easier to get people to not have to repackage it. They're making it easier for us to package. It's not that you couldn't do it before, but before it was kind of an art project, and so now it's a much more accessible project. To put those things in. And so while they are still obviously pushing down the path of this new 180-degree Blackmagic camera, which interestingly enough they didn't talk about very much on the show, probably because it
showed it briefly. That's all they showed it. Yeah.
And then but they are making it, making sure that if you're not going to spend $30,000 on a camera, if you have $5,000, you can get an R5. these smaller, these Insta 360s are much less expensive, and you can still create content with those as well. So so I think that was a big step forward. Obviously, the biggest problem for the Apple Vision Pro is content. So making it easier for people to generate content is a big part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Well, based on that, I really wanted to ask you, is it a really big deal that now the Mac can render stuff out to the Vision Pro or stream stuff out to the Vision Pro and use the Vision Pro almost just as like a Mac accessory? Does that like make it more relevant and more important, or is that just okay, that's nice for gaming, but whatever?
Yeah, I wasn't. I've talked to some folks that have been doing that, and they really like it. To me, that I have to admit that just didn't jump out as something that I needed, and so I haven't really applied myself. I haven't applied a lot of attention to it yet. I can put my Mac. I find that one of the things that was really interesting about the Vision Pro was the Your Eyes only. It is the most for Your Eyes only ever. Like you have registered, you put the headset on and said you are you, and now I could see some companies and organizations and even where they really want to make sure you're the only one watching, because remember, that's kind of a protected space. It's very hard to record, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't want people to screen record, you could theoretically, I could see companies buying these and saying, when we're having our top secret discussions or whatever, you got to put the headset on, to see what we're going to show you. And that way they can be sure you're not screen capturing, they can be sure you're not recording any other way. There's no really take a picture of it. There's no way to take a picture of it. So that's
you can now have multiple users in the same space, right?
I think that's going to be really great.
Everybody should buy Vision Pro, and you guys can watch a movie together.
Well, I think there's watching the movie together, but I think what they really showed there was the ability to interact with an object. So we'll look at something that we're working on, whether it's, and this has been something that the HoloLens could do for quite some time, which is that you have an engine or you have a piece of architecture that you're looking at, and you want to talk about it, not having the same space that you can stand in and talk about it. It makes a difference. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Here's a video of a guy using MetaHuman to create a non-human.
Wow, look at that little character.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah. The other on-stage demo is just amazing. Like
here's it is. I was
it's like there again.
Here, Alex, show it to us.
Yeah.
Oh my God, his hair's on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but this is here you can see the Brio here. So he's talking into the Brio, and you can see him there.
Single
live.
Camera. Where's the second?
Then they show a wide here. Hold on, let's see.
So he does have a second kind of body cam.
Yeah, I think that they started off here. And somewhere
there we go.
They started with just him as him.
Yeah, when they bring the wizard out from behind the curtain, you see like see the automatic rigging, you see how AI is figuring out position, stuff like that.
Yeah, there was one where there was
amazing
a wide shot just for a second. Let's see. Let's see. Here's there it is. Hold on. If I can. So there's there's the wide shot that he's on right there.
So this is what I was doing as Dev Null with all of this computing and this special sensor suit and all of that.
It's exactly what you were doing. Now, the resolution is not the same as a Vicon, but it's probably the same resolution as what you probably had a motion analysis, I think, actually. I think that Dev Null was like it was anyway. So, but back then, this resolution is probably the same as what you had in
1994. Yeah,
1994. This is the same resolution. Today's motion capture can be, the biggest thing is that it's a higher frame rate. So these webcams are running at 30 frames a second. A Vicon system is running at 480 frames a second. And the reason that that's important is because that's going to capture all that motion, and it gives you a lot of extra, it oversamples what you need so that when there's idiosyncrasies or things that aren't working, it can correct for them. It can see that this is a little spike in the movement, and it can, say that can't happen. So we can clean the noise with what we would call a Butterworth filter. Anyway, so it's literally just throw some butter on it.
A Mrs. Butterworth filter?
No, there's a butter. It's actually the researcher who wrote it. It's called a Butterworth filter, and it smooths out your motion. It smooths out a lot of different.
Wow.
It's a general convolution kernel. So, it's a Butterworth filter. But we used to when we were doing motion capture, we just throw a little butter on it. It's fine.
Yeah, a little butter.
So anyway, but the so the frame rate is still something that the motion capture has, but this is going to really change how quickly someone now MetaHuman is now built into Unreal Engine. The motion capture is all built into it. So for free until you start making money. I mean, that's what the way Epic works is everything's free until you're making $1 million or whatever.
That's the way it should be. Yeah.
No, it's a great business model. And so anyway, so they, but between this, and I think that this, you'll see some generation. The bummer is that because Apple and Epic aren't getting along, that it creates all this, like we don't have in the Vision Pro. I think part of the content problem that Apple has is that they're in this fight with Epic. And so they're not taking the best platform that has all these tools and really supporting them in the headset.
Although yesterday Apple talked a lot about Metal 4 and talked about gaming, and
they keep on trying to unlock the gaming. I feel like they've got a little lockpick kit, and they just keep on trying.
They have new games.
That's a good way of
they're like, okay, let's try the other one. Let's try this one over here, and they can't quite open it up. I think it's hard because the gamers, I think, are very well planted where they are. The performance it's hard to get the same performance that you're getting from like a 4090 card, on even a Mac Pro. So the gamers are, hard to move forward. I think you would have to write. The problem is that when you port the games, you lose it's very inefficient. And so what you really would have to do for the games is write them from the ground up on Metal to make sure that they would really take full advantage of the operating system. And then you might see that kind of performance. But if there's any kind of abstraction in between it, that causes, you're not getting quite the same performance as you can get on a PC. So that's problematic.
So from the two Vision Pro owners, I guess we lost Anthony. He got tired of being in the helmet. These seem like good moves forward. Is this what you'd hope for, Alex, from the Vision Pro?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm really waiting for is the Black Magic camera to get out into the world, because
that's going to add to the content.
Because the big thing about that is that you have a real camera that has a real workflow. So it's not just the camera. It's the fact that Resolve is being built to take all the metadata and all the stuff that's coming from the camera, process that for you, and be able to deliver something to the headset. And you got to have the whole workflow. That's what stopped up this industry, the industry that I'm in, that I've been doing. I've been doing immersive for 30 years now, of some version, stills, video, 3D, all kinds of other things. And the thing that makes it hard is that everything's an art project. Everything is like you cobble together a bunch of weird things together to get out what we want. And not everything's a little quirky, and things just don't quite work. And I think Apple's still dealing, like the reason we see so little from Apple is because that's their workflow too. It's very quirky and hard and everything's there. And so it's taking a long time to get this Blackmagic workflow moving. But once we do that, I think it opens up for an enormous amount of content that we haven't seen before. That I think will be, I look at things that I go to now and I go, oh, this would be really cool if I was in my headset and it was immersive and so on and so forth. And I shoot a lot of spatial stuff and think about what it would look like in 180 degree immersive.
Well, we did things kind of inside out. That's the visionOS 26 version of the show. Sorry, no jingle. You can add it in post though if you want, John Ashley. We are going to take a break when we come back.
Oh,
in post.
Never.
That was enough. That was sufficient. When we come back, we will let's talk about liquid glass, because that's a big change that everybody's going to experience on all versions of Apple devices. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Mikah Sargent filling in for Jason Snell, who got skunked in the Relay FM upgrade draft. He only got a couple. Mike Hurley almost ran the board. We'll talk. We'll razz Jason next week on the show. Also, Andy Anako and Alex Lindsay. Our show today brought to you by Bitwarden. I do want to tell everybody this is the way to go. If you need a password manager or a pass key manager, or you want to manage secrets like your SSH keys or your API keys, this is the choice. Certainly my choice, Steve Gibson's choice. Bitwarden, consistently ranked #1 in user satisfaction by G2 and software reviews. More than 10 million users across 180 countries. That's almost all of them. And over 50,000 businesses. That's really interesting too. You need a password manager, right? Why don't you get the password manager that's open source, that's responsive to its users, that's easy to use, that's beautiful, I keep all my passkeys. And by the way, more and more websites and companies are using passkeys now. It's getting to be something really useful. You need Bitwarden. You know that more than 19 billion passwords are now available on the dark web? Sadly, 94% of them are reused across accounts. You know that you should only use a password once, never on more than one account. The reason being, once these get on the dark web due to a breach, let's say site 1 is breached, the bad guys are now going to do what they call credential stuffing. Try those credentials from that site on every other site and see if they work. InfoStealer malware threats surged last year 500%. You know, modern hackers don't need to hack accounts anymore. They just log in with weak or reused passwords. Hint, hint. Hint, hint. So you need a good password manager to create long, strong, non-memorable passwords on every single site you go to. Bitwarden will do that. Bitwarden has something new called Access Intelligence. This is for enterprise. It's a new feature, Access Intelligence, that enables enterprises to proactively defend against internal credential risks and external phishing threats. And this is, by the way, probably the biggest threat to your company right now when it comes to ransomware, right? 2 core functionalities in this new Access Intelligence. You get risk insights, which allows teams to identify, prioritize, and remediate at-risk credentials, aka reused passwords, or just bad passwords. There's also an advanced phishing blocker, which will work all the time to alert and redirect users away from known phishing sites. It does that in real time using a continuously updated open source block list of malicious domains. Passwordless, as I mentioned, transforming digital security. And as always, Bitwarden's at the forefront, offering full support for passkeys. Don't put passkeys on a device, because then if you don't have the device, you can't use the passkey. Put it on Bitwarden and put Bitwarden on every device, as I do. Your passkeys are always available. It also supports all the FIDO2 standards, so you can use hardware keys as well to strengthen and simplify the login experience. Bitwarden's passkey support includes enhanced support across web, desktop, and mobile platforms. That means you can store and sync passkeys with end-to-end encryption, and they're always available. It also supports 2-step login with FIDO2 WebAuth and allowing hardware key authentication as a second factor, or even a primary method for supported logins. I think that's the best way to do it. You know, if you don't have a password, Microsoft announced this a few weeks ago. You can now get rid of your Microsoft password and just use, in effect, passwordless login. If you don't have a password, there's nothing for a bad guy to guess or hack or spy on in a breach. And with biometric unlock enhancements on your phone and your desktop, this really streamlines access without compromising security. You got Windows Hello or Face ID on your device. That's the best way to log in, not a password. Bitwarden's improved autofill experiences for passkeys, cards, and identities are designed to work seamlessly across modern browsers and apps. It's easy to move to Bitwarden. Their setup only takes a few minutes and supports importing from most password management solutions. And I always underscore this. Anytime you use cryptography of any kind, you want it to be open source. Bitwarden's open source code is GPL licensed. It's on GitHub. Anyone can look at it. And of course, they have it regularly audited by third-party experts. Bitwarden meets SOC 2, Type 2, GDPR, HIPAA, CCPA compliance. It's ISO 27001-2002 certified. It means any company can use it and be in full compliance. You should be using it. You should be using it at home too. Get started today with Bitwarden's free trial of a Teams or enterprise plan at work, or as an individual, get started for free forever on every device, unlimited passwords and passkeys, FIDO2 hardware keys as well. Bitwarden.com/twit. There's no reason not to have Bitwarden on your device. Use it. Bitwarden.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. As Flow Connect says in our Discord, Bitwarden is simply the best. I agree. I agree. That's awesome. All right, back to the crazy quilts from Apple. But before we go into the deets, let me ask each of you what your highlight was. Andy, what? I presume you watched the event. What will you say was the highlight for you?
Overall, I like the fact that there weren't any, apart from Liquid Glass maybe, but there wasn't any like one huge, this is the future of the company. We've benefited the entire of humanity with this new thing we've done. A lot of it was just incremental but useful changes to things that you're already using every day. Like Mikah talked about it earlier, but just the improvements to iPadOS to remove some things that make it a little more annoying to use as a primary device. That hit very, very hard. Simple
you
things.
You use an iPad, right? A lot of the time, yeah?
Exactly. I mean, I'm using one right now. I always have one.
And for instance, you'll be able to, in the fall with iPadOS 26, use it for a double-end recording. And they claim, we'll see, but I wouldn't be surprised that the AirPods are going to have high-quality audio recording. We might not need these microphones. We might be able to use the iPad, do a show from the iPad with double-ender if you want perfect quality. I think this is really interesting. The iPad's becoming a much more powerful device. Yeah, and I don't want to steal everybody else's thunder, but just talking about simple things like the way that they've snuck so much more power into Spotlight. I mean, the Spotlight has always been, I think, the most often used power feature of the iPad and the Mac. Just the ability of it almost doesn't matter that I have a dock or not, because the 20 most useful apps, it's just instinctive, command space and type the first couple letters, select and go. And the fact that it's always been the most useful part of the operating system, but also adding the features of, well, now what if we are able to simply give it commands through Spotlight and say, hey, send this message to this person and tell her I'm on my way, without having to okay, well, why do I necessarily have to go through messages? Why do I necessarily have to look things up? The fact that Alfred and Recast have been such popular utilities shows you how simple it is to simply have not a command line, but to type a simple English sentence that clearly and concisely explains what you'd like the computer to do, and the computer has certainly enough computing power to work out. Add to my calendar meeting with Debbie on December 13th at 2 p.m. at the place with the horse in front of it. So Thomas Paul Mann, who created Raycast, and I'm a big Raycast believer. I know, Andy, in the past we've talked about Alfred and Raycast, and you don't like to have them on a Mac because then it makes a Mac that you haven't used before kind of unusable. So improved Spotlight will certainly make a big difference. But Thomas was very quick to jump on X and say, so Apple added shortcuts, quick keys, clipboard history, and the menu item to Spotlight, hey? What about? And there is a long list of features that Raycast has that Apple doesn't have. Raycast has thousands of available, more than 2,000 community available extensions. So there's nothing that Spotlight can do that Raycast won't be able to do, and there's a whole lot of Raycast does that Spotlight
and arguably it's good I'm sure that he can leverage that very nicely by saying, hey, now that you're used to using a Spotlight thing to do more than just simply search for a file on your drive, why not actually automate? Why not get the 230 IQ version of this? And yes, it costs a little bit of money, and there's a short learning curve, but it's so much more powerful. But the idea of giving this basic power, like maybe 75% of the most useful features of these third-party utilities, and putting that into Spotlight is a huge, huge plus. I mean, that was the things they've hidden into this, for years, people have been asking, why is the clipboard the same as it was in 1984? Why can't I go through my clipboard history and have multiple things inside a clipboard? So, okay, that is a good idea. Let's throw that into Spotlight. Instead of adding more user interface, instead of adding more dinguses, for adding more icons and things to understand, it's no, just leave it. Spotlight is basically your personal assistant, only instead of being Shlomo, it's something that's actually functional and grateful for the opportunity to help you. Yeah, and I have to say, as a avid Raycast user, when I saw that list, I went, I could do that. I could do that. Yeah. The problem is that it can do almost anything, and you're building into Spotlight the things that people really want. And I suspect for a lot of people, Spotlight will be all they'll need, right? Even for me. Yeah, and I think that anytime you're building something that you kind of feel like Apple should have done right the first time and you're fixing it for them, they may come by and fix it.
a plugin for Final Cut that was just fixing green screen because the green screen keyer in Final Cut was so bad in 7 that it was just like, well, we'll just put our keyer out, and it generated hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for a long time, $100,000 a year for a long time. 5 or 6 or 7 years with almost no effort. Like just kept on printing money. We updated it every once in a while. We had a new operating system, new Final Cut or whatever, but it was a very minor amount of work. And then Apple, but we knew that someday the song was going to end. Apple really finally put in a better keyer into the new Final Cut. And I was like, well, that's the end of that. We'll move on now. Wasn't that a great trip? But I think that if you're building something that is, again, fixing something that Apple probably should have done or could do better, you have to know that you sit on, soft ground, and you should enjoy it while it lasts, because I think that Apple's going to keep on making that operating any of their apps. They're going to continue to improve them. And if you prove to do well, then you are now something they're like, oh, well, why don't we add that in?
What, Mikah, struck you as the highlight of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with something kind of small because I think that it is a sort of the spirit of the update. Really, what it feels like with the redesign is about getting the operating system and its UI out of the way. And so something early that they shared that I think really showed that quickly and gave us a little bit of delight as well was the update to the lock screen. So with the new lock screen, not only do we have this sort of dynamically generated text that will adjust to the photographs that you have and the subject that you have, but think about what all this lock screen feature is doing. You're very quickly seeing the computational ability of iOS and iPadOS. You are seeing liquid glass and what it can do. You're seeing the dynamic ability of liquid glass and that feeling that you're getting. And you're seeing that they're holding true to what they're saying about getting out of the way, because one of the features that they showed was as notifications start to come in on your lock screen, it knows what the subject of the photograph is and starts to move it up and keep it in frame, which I think is fantastic. So all of that is what
show my screen, if you would, John Ashley, because this is the Apple demo for people to see that. I admittedly, accessibility might suffer from this, but you can always turn it off. And the fact that it can do this is so gorgeous. It does. You're right. It focuses on the content, doesn't it?
And that's their whole thing. That's what they kept saying throughout the whole
out of the
piece.
way.
Let's get it out of the way. Let's let you focus on your content. And I think this was sort of a wrapped gift package that showed the dynamics of the animations that are built in. It showed the sort of quirky, fun aspect of it, and also showed, hey, here is what computational technology is doing in the background. It doesn't have to be this thing that comes forward and says, let me help you with this problem.
And also, only the top, if Android ever decided to go down this path, if you look at all the motion that it has and all the rendering that it's doing, only the top phones would be able to do it. So you wouldn't be able to,
and I imagine a lot of this will be available on iPhone 16 and later, right? I mean, this is heavy computation.
I mean, it probably is. I would guess it probably is 14 and above is probably what it can. I don't know, but I'm guessing that 14 was a pretty big jump from a processing perspective, and but it will go back a little bit, but not too far back, maybe. But I think that less expensive. When it comes to Apple, has to constantly be looking at, how do you do things, take advantage of what you have. And what they're getting really good at is all these things getting tied together, tightly wound, having all of these OSs look the same, having them, the continuity and coherence and all the other things that are happening to keep everything kind of moving together continues to build that story. But it also, they're doing things that are hard. And by doing things that are hard, it's a little bit of a technological moat from, if you went to something else, you'd feel it. That's kind of the intention there.
What was your highlight?
Quickly answer the question. iPhone 11 is the earliest phone that will support 26. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will support the new UI and everything, but it says that iPhone 11
it'll support 26. I knew that, but I was wondering. In fact, that was the other big story. This is the last version of macOS for Intel.
And
Apple's good at that.
I'll say only because it's relevant. I'm very, very disappointed in iPadOS 26 because my first generation M1 iPad Pro 12.9 and it's not compatible. The earliest one that is compatible is the generation 3 12.9 inch iPad Pro.
Oh, that's
and
a
so and the thing is, this thing is it's an Apple product, so it is ticking along like a champ. And I'm like, do I really want to spend $1,000 for a new iPad? Just to get, I might have to just simply say I got to wait until 2026.
One has to wonder if that was part of the calculus. Is we can't get people to move to the newer iPads. How do we get them to move?
That would be mean, but
I think that's also why Apple wants the games to work, is because the games, theoretically high performance games puts a lot of pressure on the system. It's just that they, again, I just don't feel like their game approach generates games that have any stickiness at all. Like it's not, and the problem is I think Apple doesn't want to go deeply down they allow the games on there, but they're not wanting to necessarily go down the
AAA title.
The first person shooters, right? Is I mean, that's the thing that drives bot purchases.
I do want to play that new Zoe game though. That looked pretty cool. The Sims, first person Sims, Enzoy. How many of you, show of hands, will turn all of your icons to clear, colorless floating bits of
not. No, I think it's a cool thing to look at, but I'm like, I don't think I would actually want to have my phone.
Alex, I didn't ask you, what was your highlight from, like, one thing from the whole day?
Mike's selection on the iPad.
That's huge. I agree. It's like transformational.
I mean, I would say that leaks into what we talked about before, which is double ending on the iPad. So I look at this like when we think about kits for Michael Krasny's show, of being able to take an iPad and an MV6 and just send it to somebody and just go,
that's all they need.
Here's what you need for the podcast, and it'll just do the thing. And I think that's pretty.
They even mention podcasters in context of the double ender. I really think that's interesting how much they're paying attention to the iPad as a creative tool for audio.
A lot of us have thought about, the iPad would be a great platform for this, but there was just a couple little things like this missing. Like where would they save their file, and how would I do this thing, and how would this look? And
they need another port. So you could have a hard drive and then a mic.
You can absolutely, we can send them with a little breakout that will break out into, other ports. The USB-C is very useful, and that USB-C can, take in, and I don't know how many channels it can take in. I know that I've done 16 channels into an iPad. Wow. So the iPad can easily do a lot of those things, and that's with an older iPad, not even a new one. But thinking about like a $29 or whatever iPad with an MV6 or something like it, and being able to send that to someone, and that's how they get into a broadcast, especially now that they've moved the camera to a place that makes sense, on the side instead of on the top. For the iPad, I think it's pretty interesting. So I think that would be probably the thing, that the kind of the nod towards, that thing. The other thing I would say is shortcuts, and being able to, the intelligent shortcuts and the integration of AI into Xcode, and the ability, we haven't tested it, but we did talk about it last night, that you should be able to put your own tokens in to put in Claude or whatever. So it's coming with ChatGPT kind of easily built in, but you can put other.
If you have an API key, you can put it in.
You put the other API keys in, and so you should be able to just start doing code generation that way, as well as the intelligence. I think that the intelligent shortcuts, when it matures, is going to be huge. It's like when I walk into the house, I want you to turn this light on, and this light on. That's all I want.
You're stepping a little bit on my pick, but we're going to take a break, and I will give you my highlight from yesterday's Apple event. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Alex Lindsay, Andy Anako, and Mikah Sargent. Nice to have you filling in for Jason Snell. We did a nice little keynote coverage. We did the whole day. We did both keynotes, the Platform State of the Union as well, yesterday, and that is available for club members. Our synopsis is available globally on the TWiT channel, but if you're not yet a club member, might be a good time to join, because from now on, all of the keynotes, all of the coverage, the commentary on keynotes will be in the club only, and that's just because Apple has tried to take us down both on YouTube and Twitch with letters from attorneys. I mean, they've gotten pretty serious about it, so we don't want to raise anybody's hackles. So we'll do it in the club. For $10 a month, you get a lot more than that, though. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You wouldn't even hear this plug. You also get access to the Club TWiT Discord, which is a social network of smart people like you, which makes it really pretty darn exciting. It's a great place, not just during the shows to chat, but all the time and all the topics that we as geeks care about. You also get the special events that we do in the club only, not just keynotes. Coming up on Friday, we're going to do our monthly photo time with Chris Marquardt. It's not too late to submit your photo with the theme geometric. I have one to submit, geometric, to our Flickr group, and Chris will be reviewing those on Friday along with all the camera news. Mikah does his crafting corner next week on Wednesday. I enjoyed that last time, Mikah. I popped in. I didn't have anything really I was working on, but I popped in, and it's such a soothing time and a great time to be together with the other club members who are crafting stuff. Lego, or are you going to do Lego again this week?
We'll still be doing Lego, and then we'll probably move into calligraphy.
Oh, fun.
Thing. Yeah.
Well, you'll like the new Read pen on the iPadOS. You do iOS Today live in the club. Of course, the AI user group was really incredible last week. We talked vibe coding. Lou Maresca says he wants to come back and do a demo, so that might be kind of fun. In fact, I'm thinking in the crafting corner, I started a vibe coding project with React Native with our TWiT API, and it was able to connect to the API and download content. So I'm kind of halfway to an app, so that might be kind of fun to work on that while you're doing your crocheting or your knitting or Micah's Lego. This is why the club is a great thing. It's a place for you to hang with people of like mind and have a nice, fun, informative time, just like the podcast. If you're not, and by the way, I didn't even mention this part. It makes a big difference to us and our bottom line. 25% of our operating costs now are covered by you club members. Thank you, club members. twit.tv/club TWiT. I invite you to join. Starts at $10 a month, $120 a year. You can pay more if you want, but you don't have to. twit.tv/club TWiT. Well, I'm going to ask myself, Leo, what do you think the highlight of Monday's keynote was? I was really impressed. I thought Apple was going to have a very tough time after last year because, of course, they kind of screwed the pooch on AI, over-promising and under-delivering, something Apple rarely does. And I thought, in fact, it was on Jason's draft card that they might even apologize for last year. They, of course, did not do that. But they did something subtly, I think, much better. They did. Craig Federighi briefly mentioned, yes, we're putting in Siri, but it's taking longer than we thought. I mean, it was quick. If you blinked, you'd missed it. But then they showed Apple Intelligence beautifully, elegantly woven throughout in very interesting ways. Your Maps app will kind of know where you're going ahead of time and recommend a route. It will even give you a notification on your CarPlay without you doing the nav saying, hey, the path you usually take on this is blocked. You might want to try an alternate route. Things like that. AI is everywhere in a way that is useful and positive. It's not, they say they improved image playgrounds and Gemoji. Who cares? I think they've done things that make AI truly useful. Of course, they have, still, and they will go out even more often to ChatGPT. For instance, Image Playground now will use the ChatGPT image generation, which is 1,000 times better. So, they're giving you the AI you might want, but I really like, this is a feature quilt with they showed it very quickly, nobody could read it, of all the little things that they have added into iOS. I think that, and not all of these are AI, but to me, and I'm curious what you all thought, they did AI right this time.
This is what last year should have looked like.
Yes.
This is, yes. They could have just done, they didn't have to talk about Siri. They didn't have to talk about all the things. I think that there was a lot of panic that they had in that moment. I think they did seem to learn a lesson from that. And I think that they're showing practical ways that we're using AI in small doses, and giving us access to things like having our AI inside of Xcode, or having, embedding things, generating images with ChatGPT or whatever. But these are all things I think that they did really well. And I do think that they still hold long term. They hold some potential huge advantages of being able to do this on the, on the device, being able to have it feel more private.
Almost all of it is on device, which really was interesting to me. They're promising a lot that's hard to do on a little
and
device
making it
with a
available
small
to the developers, so that the developers can sit there and without all those extra costs and everything else, and without everybody.
By the way, if I had to pick one thing that would really be important in this, it's the fact that developers can now add Apple intelligence models. We mentioned it earlier to their
just
apps.
a few lines. Yeah,
huge.
Yeah, as just just calling out to it rather than having to try to build their own.
I expect to see AI now in so many more apps in so many ways. It'll be very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, and they've added, you're absolutely right. They've added so many meaningful little features, like just simply the ability to hold assistance. You're on hold and it will just basically be on hold for you and wait for an actual human being to actually pick up the phone and alert you. Being able to, when you take a screenshot, that it can actually surface actual information from out of the screenshot and action on it. Like if it's a calendar thing, or you're on Instagram and there's an event, you can screenshot it because you want to keep it, but it will also, hey, by the way, I see that you want to schedule this as an actual event. That's really nice. These are all really, really simple things. They're not terribly complicated. A lot of this stuff has been on Pixels and on Android for a while, but that doesn't mean anything. It means that they're good ideas, and Apple can just simply use artificial intelligence as a seasoning as opposed to the main protein of the dish. That's perfectly okay, and it's probably the right track for Apple to follow, given how much money and expertise they can put into artificial intelligence compared to OpenAI, compared to Microsoft, compared to Google. It's fine.
Nightscape says in our Discord, and I agree 100%, Apple's going back to the original game plan of releasing little betterments rather than some big agent that they had to have been planning for their last big announcement. After putting all the other pieces in place. Lots of little things, and even more, I think, in the apps that you use. I liked this quote in their press release. This is Craig Federighi. Last year, we took the first steps in a journey, the first stumbling steps, I'll add, on a journey to bring users intelligence. And this is key. That's helpful, relevant, and easy to use, and right where the users need it, all while protecting their privacy. I think if they can live up to that, helpful, relevant, easy to use, right where you need it, and private, that's a win in AI. That's huge.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mac.
I just was going to say, I didn't expect to be the person that's doing this, but I am just not convinced yet. When I look at the features when I look at writing tools, when I look at Image Playground, when I look at the functionality that we've seen thus far where Apple intelligence has been added, not to mention, and I quite literally, I did an episode of Hands on Apple about this recently, it was voice dictation. And for the longest time, voice dictation worked in this great way where you said things and it wrote it, and you could have it automatically add periods and commas, or you could choose to add them by voice. And it had tools like the ability to say digit and then 1756, and it knew that what you wanted was to have it type out 1756 instead of 1756 written out, right? Those little kind of shortcuts. And because they applied a new voice dictation model that makes use of this Apple intelligence, as I was doing that episode trying to show these features off, I had to stop and redo the episode because a lot of Apple's own support that showed that these things were possible were no longer possible because the AI was trying to be smarter about the dictation that I was doing. Now it gets words wrong more often than it ever has before. It will be correct whenever it's first giving me the answer, or it's kind of typing it out, and then at the end, because it's trying to be smarter about the context of the sentence, it changes it to the wrong word. And that's one small example of how Apple intelligence being sprinkled on top has actually ruined a thing. And so every time they talked about some cool new feature and they said, and it's made possible with Apple intelligence, I have a lot of, I'm not saying that it's not going to be amazing.
You're just skeptical.
I'm skeptical, and I'm worried that it's going to be harmed by that. And so when it comes to now developers being able to use these models in their apps, I mean, it's clear that Image Playgrounds Apple has kind of said, okay, yeah, if we do it ourselves on device, the images you're getting aren't going to be that great. And so that's why we've added ChatGPT as an option where you can go to a server somewhere and have it create a model for you or create a photo for you, because that's going to look better and probably more of what you want. So I am skeptical. Now, I will say that I was a little convinced of the possibility of it being good for individual developers who decide to do a little added training, because that is part of the API that's being made available to developers. If you give it contextual training that is specific to your app, then it's possible I could start to see where that would be helpful.
That's, by the way, huge. I did not notice that. And that is exactly what you want, is to be able to tune it to the specific. So if you're a calendar, you tune it to calendar entries. That's really good. That's
and one hopes that the developers will make use of that, because without it, I'm skeptical. That's what I want to say.
I think it's fair to be skeptical. Apple burned us last year. So it's reasonable. Again, we have the proofs in the pudding. By the way, for everything we're talking about in 26, we'll see when it comes out in September.
In beta. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I am going to jump on. Well, let me take a break and then come back when I'm going to jump on. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy, is the website almost there?
Almost there.
Almost there. Okay.
I'm very almost there.
I don't mean to harass you.
It was either going to launch like a week or two before WWDC or a week or two after WWDC, after the noise died down.
Yeah.
But yeah, and unfortunately I didn't hit 2 weeks before, so it has to be a couple weeks after.
Yeah, but that means there's more content on there.
Am I allowed to say I'm enjoying it?
Good.
Or are we gonna have to edit that out?
Good.
No, thank you. You're not under NDA. You're only under NDA for complaints.
Got it.
Wow. Does your keyboard have lowercase, Andy? Like, no, I just get excited. That's all, Mikah.
MacBreak Weekly on the air. Let's get back to what I'm going to jump on. The public betas are next month in July. I notice you've already done the developer beta. Some of you have already done the developer. Mikah, which developer betas did you install?
So I installed macOS and I installed iPadOS.
On your production machines?
No, heavens no. Never, not ever, not once. So I have my MacBook Air that is not a production machine. It used to be, and then we...
Oh, that's a good point. I have my... Yeah, I could do it on the MacBook Air. Yeah.
And so that's...
Do they seem stable to you?
I've been impressed thus far. There have been weird, of all things, like text alignment issues in a lot of the prompts, but outside of that, I haven't had any crashes.
That's not a showstopper. That's fine.
Exactly. I honestly, one of the things I wanted to mention, I think it might have been Andy, somebody mentioned about the menu bar changing. And I had mentioned that, Leo, during our conversations yesterday about how I was a little worried. I had almost forgotten about it because I hadn't even noticed that the menu bar on the Mac is invisible. It didn't affect me as I thought it was going to.
You know, they walked us into this with one that kind of copied the wallpaper color, right?
Yes, exactly.
And now they're going the full.
You're just going, okay,
it's
that's
disappeared.
All the way. I also liked what they said. They were very clear. They said, we plan that by the time the next version comes out, this feature will be deprecated. If you asked me what feature that was, couldn't tell you because I forgot, but I like that they are preparing developers ahead of time to say, I think it was for app icons. So you needed to hop on the new app icon design as quickly as possible. And of course, we also learned that this is the last Intel release of Tahoe, of macOS, I mean. Tahoe is the last Intel release.
Yeah, so get yourself an Apple Silicon Apple. I promise you will be happier. It's amazingly better.
Start picking out a Linux for the old Mac. there are a couple good ones out there. It can still be a good Plex server. It can still be a good NAS.
Yeah, you don't want to throw it away.
Just try not to make it run macOS.
I personally I'm not going to do the developer betas. You're too brave for me, Mikah. But I am going to do the public beta on iPadOS
in July. Yeah,
I am so excited about what the new iPadOS means. This is, for years, I've bitched and moaned about the iPad being too good for the software you could run on it. And all of a sudden, it isn't. In fact, and the other thing that this coincided with, I am starting to use my iPad Pro. I have the M4 version more. I mentioned this yesterday to you, Mikah, because of Tapestry, which is a Icon Factory RSS reader that I use daily, and Obsidian, which runs beautifully, really looks nice on the iPad. I even have a terminal program on there that lets me log into my Linux box if I really need Emacs. And I'm using also Synology's Synology Drive, which means I can access my documents folder on the iPad as if it's, running a full computer. But add to that this whole new way of thinking. By the way, it also has tiling along with windowing, so it's got they have a 4-up tile. I mean, this is really great. It makes me want a larger screen, a 20-inch iPad,
And I obviously haven't tried it on my iPad yet because it's not compatible, but I've been watching and reading people saying, giving their first impressions after having connected it to an external display, that's even better when you have it connected to like an actual screen with more real estate, and now you have a 2-display desktop that just feels like a desktop machine. I mean, for those of us who've been on the iPad since the very, very beginning, it is amazing to see all the most of the bad dogma of the iPad start to drop away about saying, no, it's not, it's an iPad, it's not a desktop, there's the macOS desktop operating system, there's the iPad mobile operating system, and there's no need to have any interchange between concepts between the two of them. And little by little, as they've been making the iPad have more and more hardware oomph, people have been saying inside Apple, like, well, why can't we make it easier to move files on and off of it? Why are we stuck with slide over and having 2 tiled windows in the middle? Why can't we have overlapping windows? And now just the simple idea of, we are the biggest dogma of them all, where Apple always has that thing where they're over your shoulder watching you do something and say, "Oh my, no, don't put the window. Oh, it looks so ugly. Give me the mouse. Give me the mouse. Give me the mouse." and the previous versions, like, okay, we will let you have windows, but we won't let you put them wherever you want. Now the simple ability of, you can have too many windows on the display, overlapping a little on the edge. It will look like garbage, but we finally decided at Apple that you've given us $1,200 for this tablet. We will allow you to make your screen look like garbage if that's how you work.
The club is telling you your M1 is supported, by the way, Andy. Really? So, yeah.
Okay. The document that I saw.
Here's the list of iPads Pros that will support it. Okay. And that first generation iPad Pro is
I guess included. I'm wrong. I was going from a list that I saw on 9 to 5 Mac this morning.
Okay.
So there's some.
We'll find out. I'm
relieved to know.
I feel like this is going to become my default Apple device. I can't even.
Yeah, Mike, I'm so tortured. I'm sorry, I'll shut up. But I'm so tortured because this is such a revolutionary, such a big leap forward for what I can do with my iPad Pro. But I only have one iPad that can run this. If the M1 can run it, and I don't want to screw it up.
Here's the actual Apple graphic from Dustin, and you are definitely included.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
Yay!
Well, and I think that Apple looks at the macOS as kind of the old thing that it's legacy that you get that, and so the idea that the iPad and the Mac are separate is mostly not to freak the Mac users out.
Well,
as the iPad keeps moving towards them, because I think that they're like, yeah, you can keep on using the trucks, but
there's one thing I will defend. As of today, and maybe the EU changes, you cannot install any arbitrary app on the iPad. It has to be in the App Store.
Right. And
that is a fundamental difference between the Mac and the iPad.
I think I mentioned last week, we built an app that you could never ship, into an iPad because it literally digs into Motion's package and inserts something into it because we want to. And so the issue.
I don't know what they're.
I don't know why they wouldn't let us do that, but yeah. So I was mentioning it last week. Like CJ Covell and I were working on this thing where we want to replace the reflections. This is a good example of why you want to be able to put your own app in. We want to replace the reflections in Motion because there's no way to do that. But the only way to do that is to find the reflections inside of the package, inside the Motion package, little folders, and they have the reflections. You can't change the names because it's somewhere hard coded, but you can just replace the wood reflection or whatever with whatever reflection and we figured out how to name it all and how to convert an HDRI to the formats that it needed to be in. But the last step is that it just opens it up so you can drop it in, and we can't ship that. So there is there is that limit, and I think that there's also but I do think that Apple looks at it, and I have a touchscreen here that I have connected to a Mac. It would be a lot of work to make that really workable. Like I try to use it as a touchscreen.
I think it's fine for them to have two tracks.
Yeah,
they've got two tracks.
But what I would say is they have two tracks, and one is they're still developing it. I mean, the macOS still got a whole new update, and it does all these new things. But I think that this was the first launch. They were going like this, and then suddenly the iPad went, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah,
like just kind of moved over, and like it's really close now.
Well, if I had a choice, I'd rather the iPad look more like the Mac than the Mac look more like the iPad.
I agree, and I think
which is where it's going. Yeah.
That's where it's going. Is that it? No, but I think that the other thing is, I do think that Apple it is a design process of what do we actually need from the Mac OS, and they're not just saying we're going to make it look like the Mac OS. They're going, we tried split screen, but that's not enough. Okay, so we're going to do Windows the next year, and the next year they'll do a little bit more. But they're making every new feature earn its position inside the iPad rather than automatically just taking what was there in the past. And I think that that's an interesting, development.
I think they picked the best parts of the Mac to put in there: a menu bar, the updated Files app. They've got Expose.
But I think everything is earning its position in the operating system as they add the Mac-like things.
Yeah,
it's always the best of the things that we really need.
Got folders in the docks now. Although I hate those springy, bendy folder views that they have. I want a list view. I don't know if they'll have a list view, but they have made this iPad, as far as I'm concerned. I'll still have a Mac because I do need to run Emacs. I want to be able to run Homebrew. I want to be able to have a terminal. The kinds of things a real computer can do.
But I guess here's the thing: is I think we're of a generation that wants that. I think that they're looking at the next generation. When I look at how people use this, this is a massive generalization. I know I'm going to get a bunch of people are going to ping me about this.
Well, because the people who are listening are the geeks who use those tools.
But when you go to the airport, I spend a lot of time. I have spent a lot of time in airports. Well, over 60 and below 20 is all iOS and iPads. And then there's a bunch of us that are between 20 and 60 that are all, we grew up in the computer age.
I don't think I don't think we're aging out. I think that there will always be a group of people who want to do more with their systems, period.
Because we grew up doing more. I mean,
no, because they're coders, because they want to run AI locally. There's a lot of reasons you would want a real computer.
But that percentage,
those aren't going to go away.
No, they're not going to go away. But I'm just going to say that percentage of the market is like 10% of the market. It is.
I'd agree.
The vast majority,
it's the best 10%.
When I look at my but when I look at like an average
10%.
But when I look at like my mom's PC, my mom will not switch over. There's so many viruses and all this weird stuff going on and everything else. I'm like, you should not have, she should just have an iPad. She's checking her email.
She shouldn't have Windows, period. No one should have Windows. But I think that I do hope that I don't have to move to Linux to get a real computing experience. I do hope Apple will continue to support a real computing experience along with this. I agree, modern. It's aesthetically much prettier. It's beautiful. The screens are better on the iPads than they are on the Macs. I guess you could get
my best quality display in the entire office is my iPad Pro.
Yeah.
When I want to go check color, I go, well, I'm going to turn the brightness all the way up, make sure that all the coloration stuff, the nighttime stuff is off. And I look at if I'm not somewhere where I have a calibrated monitor, what I look at is the iPad. Right. What does the color look like?
But there will always be people who want a command line. There will always be people who want to get under the hood. It's going to be a smaller and smaller percentage. But you know what? Thank goodness for them, because those are the ones creating the programs you're using, right?
Yeah. Right. And particularly as like more and more of the world is turning towards, look, if you can run a Chrome compliant or Safari compliant browser on whatever this is, you're good for 75 to 80% of what you want to do. That really is the world that we're going to. But I do think that that's never going to be, the thing is, the fact that it might be close to 80%, of course, we're just pulling a number out of the air, but it seems like an okay guess to make. The thing is that 20% of what you can't do is going to be different for so many people. And what's completely going to be valuable is that's the reason why if the iPad could do these 3 additional things, and it's going to be a different 3 things for everybody, I could spend all of this money on a top of the line 1 terabyte iPad with 5G instead of buying a MacBook Air instead. But unfortunately, those 3 things are incredibly important up until iPadOS 26. The fact that I couldn't like plug in an external microphone and use an external microphone and external camera was the reason why I'm in New York for just 36 hours, but I have to bring my MacBook because it's the only thing that I can do this live stream from because these limitations. These things get, we respond, the technology we use, the software we use, and the culture we use is a reflection of our society. And the evolution of the iPad and the evolution of web-based tools is also a reflection of the society that we live in. As we're trying to use things that are not necessarily even aesthetic, they're just simply functional, lowest requirement level of hardware in order to get this done, because all we want to do is just do these simple basic things. But the one thing that worries me, and that's a lowercase w worry, is that I did like the iPad's tiled windows. I did like slide over because on an iPad with a smaller screen, like a regular iPad or an iPad mini, it was a very clever way to get multitasking, multi-apps on one screen without having to constantly move things around and adjust things to make things actually work on that small screen. And I wonder if I'm not going to miss a simple way to simply say, look, thank you for giving me multiple windows, but I really just want a window on this side, a window on that side. From what I've seen and read, you can do that now. You can basically, it uses snap windows where you just simply drag it to a certain place and it will occupy half the screen. Let's see if it works quite so well. Overall, I hope that Apple does not miss an opportunity to maintain the iPad as a unique thing. It is not macOS. It is not Windows. It is not Linux. It is designed to work on a variety of size tablets, from something the size of a trade paperback to something with 12.9-inch screen, just like a laptop, and function very, very well as a productivity device, no matter what size you've got. I just hope that it's not like running a remote access where I've got a desktop operating system squeezed into this tiny window and it's not comfortable and I don't like it.
So, by the way, somebody in the Discord has installed the beta on his M1, a MacBook Pro, and it works fine. So good news, Andy.
iPad Pro.
What did I say, Mac? iPad.
Now,
let's talk about Mac OS, because Mac OS did not get left behind. It's, of course, going to get this all new design. It didn't get round icons. Thank God.
Yeah.
That was Mark Gurman at Bloomberg backed down last week. He had said months ago, round icons everywhere. He changed his tune, so he'd be right either way. But he changed his tune, and I'm glad he did. Because this is how icons should look. It feel like they're more rounded than they were.
Yeah, I think they did point that out.
Everything in macOS is more rounder than it was before. The edges of every window are now matched to the rest of the system, and so the icons also match that as well. And there were 6 words that Apple used in talking about its design language: hierarchy, harmony, consistency, layering, depth, and vitality. And that consistency and the harmony are both what you see. It's as if the designers at Apple are whispering that as you look at different parts of macOS and iPadOS, etc. They really are trying to make them all feel very similar. Anthony pointed out something very clear and smart, I think, because we heard that visionOS was the inspiration to bring all of these platforms forward and visually, but you still need a way to differentiate between on a visionOS on a Vision Pro, differentiate between what is a visionOS native app versus something else that you're getting from a third from one of the other platforms and sort of launching on the device. And so the difference between the circle versus the squircle, that might be a little bit more squircly than before, is kind of how you visually see the difference there. And of course, watchOS still has those round icons. It's entirely possible that at one point they thought, let's go for those completely circular icons. And then someone said, no, because we do need a difference between visionOS and the rest of the platforms.
I do think that I do think that regardless of what we think about the visionOS, it is driving, to Mikah's point, it is driving a lot of the interface design, because Apple still sees that as the future computing device, and getting us all used to these icons and all of these semi-transparent icons and the glass icons and everything else is laying a very long path towards, the assumption that you're going to be doing more with computing on some version of glasses 2-3 years from now that are much smaller than the Vision Pro, that all of this interface just simply rolls right into that AR set of glasses without being, seamlessly, which is pretty interesting if it actually happens.
As long as we're mentioning the round Rects, this is probably the right time to mention the passing of Bill Atkinson, who was a legend, one of the original Macintosh team members, 51st employee at Apple. He was the genius, an utter genius, who created QuickDraw and Mac Paint, HyperCard, of course, which
HyperCard
really predated the World Wide Web and introduced us all to hyperlinking. Atkinson created round Rects as well, and there's a great story, a lot of stories about Bill and the original Macintosh team at Andy Hertzfeld's folklore.org website, which if you haven't read, you must read. He talks about how round Rects happened. They wanted to draw circles, but it's very hard to draw circles on the Motorola 68000 because it doesn't have floating point. And you need, pi r squared, right? You need squares and square roots to do circles. So Bill went home and because he used the fact that the sum of a sequence of odd numbers is always the next perfect square, oddly. So he figured out how he could do this in integer math. And he brought it into Apple. Bill programmed at home. This is the story Bill told us. By the way, I did many hours of interviews with Bill on TWiT. He told us this story. He fired up his demo. It quickly filled the Lisa screen because it was the predecessor to QuickDraw, Lisograph, with randomly sized ovals faster than you thought possible. But something was bothering Steve Jobs. Andy's writing this. Well, circles and ovals are good, but how about drawing rectangles with rounded corners? Can we do that now? To which Bill replied, no, there's no way to do that. In fact, it would be really hard to do, and I don't think we really need it. I think Bill was a little miffed, says Andy, that Steve wasn't raving over the fast ovals and still wanted more. Steve got more intense. Rectangles with rounded corners are everywhere. Just look around this room. And sure enough, there were lots of them. The whiteboard, some of the desks, the tables. Then he pointed out the window. Look outside. There's even more practically everywhere you look. He even persuaded Atkinson to take a quick walk around the block with him, pointing out every rectangle with rounded corners he could find. When Steve and Bill passed a no parking sign with rounded corners, okay, Bill said, I give up. I'll see if it's as hard as he thought. He went back home, returned the next afternoon with a big smile on his face. His demo was now drawing rectangles with beautifully rounded corners, blisteringly fast, almost at the speed of plain rectangles. When he added the code to Lisograph, he named the new primitive round Rects. Over the next few months, round Rects worked their way into various parts of the user interface and soon became indispensable. In fact, they are now.
All the buttons are round Rects. They used to be squares. Yeah,
they're all round. Yeah, and you know what? If it were a square, I don't think it would be quite as beautiful as it is. We owe Bill Atkinson for the beauty.
Goosebumps.
Yeah. Can I say
the QuickDraw code is online, by the way, the Computer History Museum, along with his Mac Paint source code. If you want to read the work of a brilliant programmer.
Yeah.
Bill Atkinson was incredible, and I was very privileged to spend a lot of time with him. We did a bunch of interviews. They're all on the TWiT website. He was on 4 different triangulations. One of them was a 5-hour interview that I did, and we split it up into 2 different. I have the great honor of having some of. He became a photographer later in life. He did beautiful thin sections of minerals and rocks, and I have 2 of his incredible photographs. Very sad to
We
lose.
have one of those.
Yeah, he was a genius programmer at the time when you didn't have cloud compute, you did not have gigabytes and gigabytes of RAM. You had a tiny amount of system resources. All your code had to be on a ROM chip that had a very, very finite amount of space on it. So every line of code was critical. What the original Mac 128 could do or could not do was limited by the size of that tiny ROM chip. So every line had to be very, very carefully considered. And one of the other seminal stories about him was when during the Lisa development, where the management team was like trying to generate metrics on how fast the project was progressing, and so all the programmers had to like file reports on how many lines of code you wrote like over the recent periods. And he said, well, that's ridiculous. You should be scoring me on how many lines I didn't write. And so he, in one burst of, this is also on Andy Hertzfeld's site, the story, and in one sequence of programming, he managed to cut 2,000 lines of code by finding a more efficient manner of doing something. And so he files a report. How many lines of code did you write? Negative 2,000. And that's why he is like an absolute superstar. I mean, not to denigrate developers who do wonderful things today, but it's like, when's the last time you thought this code is 9,000 lines long or 40,000 lines long? It will not run. I have to delete. I have to find a way to cut 12,000 lines of code from this. Like, no, it just. I mean, there are problems or limitations, but it's not necessarily efficiency and speed is more important than simply saying, let's figure out a way to make this smaller and make this more compact. And he was that sort of logical Tetris developer where he could just figure out a way. Oh, look, I managed to collapse 4 or 5 lines down into one. It's no longer a tower.
And I have to say, I when HyperCard came out, I was just, the idea. I built some very complex things in HyperCard. I don't know, people who are really good at HyperCard, maybe not. It wasn't that big of a deal, but I programmed a whole radio station with it. So I set it all up where I could have all the songs that were in our rotation, like literally everything, and I had to go through and put it all in by hand. But then I built it all so it had all the mechanisms so that it would just tell the DJ what to play next and what the announcements were and what the ads were, because I didn't want to pay $6,000 for a PC version of something that would look really schlocky. And so but it ran the radio station. I just programmed the whole radio station with HyperCard. And I just told the program director I could do it before I could do it. I was like, oh, that'll be easy. And it was like 3 weeks later of not sleeping, I had it all working. And but that's the kind of thing that we were able to do at that point, and I built this mailing list system with HyperCard where I could, I had like 3,500 not emails, mailing addresses of people who wanted to go to events in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I could send them postcards, but I could identify them by their, all the stuff that we do now. I could identify them by their zip code, and I could cross-check the zip code against their, gender or what they came to. All those things were things I was building in HyperCard, and it just was so empowering. Just such a powerful thing. And I still feel like it'd be hard. It's hard to do what I did in HyperCard with anything today. It was really visionary.
Yeah.
In his later years, in fact, he created a really great postcard app called PhotoCard, which I used. In fact, we used it for our TWiT Christmas cards one year. Really loved PhotoCard. Bill, when we were talking to him, was caring for his wife, Sue, who passed after a long illness, and he cared for her very deeply. And he told me later that he went and did an ayahuasca ceremony and talked to her after her passing, and she said it's okay to remarry. And he did. He found love, a second love in Kai, and there's a picture of him and Kai on his Facebook page with a van that says "Embrace Life," which Bill Atkinson absolutely did. And by the way, there's one of his beautiful images. Oh, actually, no, that's Kai's son. Oh, that's beautiful. Or no, those are his. Okay, so Kai's son created a website with Bill's art on it. So you can go there if you follow him on Facebook. This was the announcement, the sad announcement that we all saw, that Bill had passed on the night of Thursday, June 5th, due to pancreatic cancer. Sadly, the same thing that killed, of course, Steve Jobs. and Bill's mentor, Jeff Raskin, who first conceived of the idea of a Macintosh. Both passed of pancreatic cancer. He was at home in Portola Valley, surrounded by family. A remarkable person, in the world would be forever different because he lived it, and I couldn't agree more. Very sad.
Can I add something regarding Jeff Raskin? Bill Atkinson used to tell that story about round rectangles a lot. He told it at a reunion panel of the original Macintosh team at a Mac Hack conference. I think it was an anniversary, so it must have been like 1994, 1999 or something. And so he tells the story and it's, again, a wonderful story. Wish if you had the opportunity to hear him speak on YouTube or your interviews or whatever, it's wonderful. And then like there's warm applause. Oh gosh, that's so Steve, isn't it? And then Jeff like adds, yeah, what you don't know, Bill, is that I'm the one who convinced Steve the day before. I'm the one who gave him the same talk, pointing out all the rounded rectangles of the world. And it was, and to this day, I wish I'd ask him afterward, were you serious about that? Or were you just saying that would be a good Steve Jobs capper to a Steve Jobs?
That would be funny, wouldn't it? I love it. Bill was diagnosed in November of 2024 with pancreatic cancer. So it was a fairly long illness, and it was very sad to lose him. I was rocked by it, to be honest with you. Not only because of who he was, and because he's only 6 years older than me, but because he represents, along with Jeff Raskin and Steve Jobs, a generation that changed the world for all of us as Apple users, and we've lost another one. And
these people, they inspired so many people. Of all the ways that the Mac changed the world, one of them was the decision that, you know what, we're not just going to promote this as a company as though this computer just simply like sprawled out of some sort of machine. We are going to highlight all the people who worked so hard to make this happen. You're going to know their faces. You're going to know their names. And a generation of kids in high school were like, you hear about rock star programmers. That term did not exist in the 1980s, but it was the same sort of thing where you see Bill Atkinson jamming on his instrument and thinking that is so cool. One day I want to play that instrument as well as he does. Yeah. And it affected so many lives, including mine.
Such a good point. We'll miss you, Bill. Thank you. As I said in my blog post, thanks for all the round rects. Let's take a break. We are going to do our picks of the week. Up next, you're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, and of course, filling in for Jason Snell, the wonderful Mikah Sargent, who's too young to have remembered Bill Atkinson, but was definitely influenced. But
I enjoyed the opportunity to learn a little bit more about Bill.
Were you around when because we interviewed him first in the Brick House, but then later in the East Side studio? You weren't around for those.
I wasn't yet around, sadly. It would have been really cool to meet him in person.
Oh,
but we have one of his photos. It's this gorgeous blue and red photo that he took.
Stunning, right? Isn't it? I know which one you're talking about.
Fire and ice. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I ordered some postcards using his app, and part of the thrill was, wow, this postcard was once inside Bill Atkinson's house, and maybe he was the person who actually like took it out of the machine and dropped it off in a hopper to his local post office.
We used it twice to send Christmas cards, and the first year he said, I corrected a few addresses for you, because he literally looked through every order and photo corrected it. He had a whole process. He was very much part of the process. And then the second year, I got another email for him. He said, I had to fix the addresses again. Could you just please fix those the next time so I don't have to do it?
Yeah.
But he did it, which was amazing. He fixed the addresses. That's how much he paid attention. He eventually did retire PhotoCard solely because he said, I don't have the energy to go through all of the photos and fix them. So you were getting Bill Atkinson's photo editing on every single one.
And I know we need to get to picks, but just make sure if you're interested in Bill Atkinson to learn about General Magic, because that device is the classic idea of this is a genius object that is way before its time, but you could tell it had the personality, the sense of humor, the perspective, the point of view of somebody who looks at now, looks at the future, and exists in both places at the exact same time, and does it as an art, as an act, programming as and product development as an act of creativity.
What an
It's
inspiration.
just brilliant stuff.
Yeah. Andy is like that too. Andy Hertzfeld is like that
and they've
too.
teamed up on that product.
Amazing person. The Mac is the product of the best minds of a generation, I think.
And I think that the interaction that he tells in that story, it really, the best products come out of someone who is going to keep on pushing for an idea even when it's unreasonable.
Yeah, a lot of credit to Steve. Yeah,
but then also they're surrounded by tenacious engineers who once you put that in their head, they can't get it out, and they have to find the solution. And it's the mix of them, because it's if you don't have both of those together, you don't end up with innovation. You end up with, someone's not pushing people. Well, they do what's a lot of people will do what makes sense and what's relatively easy to do. And but if you have that pushing, if you're pushing and the engineers aren't there, then it's soul sucking.
Yeah.
No one wants to do what you're doing.
It must have been so much fun, because it wasn't just in the later days, like in the 90s, after the second time that Apple was doomed. A lot of times engineers at Apple tell you, it was like your team versus Steve. But during the Mac development days, like when he was like shuttled to like a vice president position and not really kind of be like beloved hippie founder emeritus position, and when it was you and Steve against upper management, like, I'm going to destroy your $10,000 business computer by making one that's better and 1/3 the price. Like you thought that you put me off in a building, like on the side of campus, because you would be getting rid of me. No. You were allowing me to build my own fortress from which we will raise our pirate flag literally and fire upon the battlements of the executive suites at Apple.
I don't think this book's still in print, but this is basically what folklore.org became, which is a book called Revolution in the Valley by Andy Hertzfeld. And of course, that's Bill Atkinson with the shaggy mustache holding the first Macintosh, and Andy's right behind him. This is an incredible book. I think I got it used, but it's got stuff, memorabilia,
ephemera.
Incredible.
Wow.
I love books that reproduce the
Okay,
actual
that's
ephemera.
awesome, Leo. Oh my God.
Yeah, this is a treasured artifact of an amazing time.
Wow, that gives me goosebumps looking at that.
I
That's so
know.
cool.
Well, next time you're up into you can borrow it.
Please. I want to.
Yeah.
I want to look at it.
I think it's
my
out of
God.
print. I think I got it on eBay or somewhere. But I think all of the stories are on folklore.org. Most of them, anyway. All the good ones are. So, thank you for that. That was a lovely tribute. We're going to come back and get your picks of the week as we continue with MacBreak Weekly. Picks of the week time. Mikah, you are our special guest today. What do you have for us?
So I want to talk about an app. It's a game in Apple Arcade. This game actually existed for a long time in the App Store. It's called Hidden Folks. And
Now I'm going to give you credit because you showed us that silly little game where you drag the thing around and it just got it just got an Apple Design Award. So I'm listening to whatever you recommend. Go ahead.
So Hidden Folks was in the App Store, and something cool that Apple will occasionally do is reach out to developers of apps that they like, of games that they like, and say, hey, would you like to join Apple Arcade? And then the money works its way out in that way. And I played Hidden Folks a long time ago, but the problem with it was at the time it was just a little expensive. And so now that it's an Apple Arcade, I can get it as part of my Apple Arcade subscription. But it's basically a
like Where's Waldo?
Carmen Sandiego, Where's Waldo situation. But the cool thing is that each of the stages are animated, and occasionally what'll happen, you tap at the bottom to see the different items that you're trying to find. Usually it's people, and they have a story. But you'll notice if you're watching the screen, the person is clicking on the bamboo, so you actually have to interact with the stage to move things out of the way sometimes to find people. Just the other day, there was a chicken that had escaped from its pen. And so I go to the chicken pen and I see all of pen, and I see all of the chickens in there. And I know that the chicken that I'm looking for is somewhere nearby. And I was tapping on all of the bushes, and finally one of the bushes leaves spread apart, and there behind the bush is the chicken.
Oh.
And so it's really quite delightful.
This looks fun. Yeah.
It is. It's a lot of fun to play, and it's just one of those things that what I do, I'll listen to an audiobook and I'll tap around on the screen with this, and it's just a lot of fun. So now that it's an Apple Arcade, if you have Apple Arcade, absolutely recommend getting this because you don't have to pay any extra to get to all of the different stages. And some of the stages also are they're not search and find, but instead a person will be walking along and you kind of have to tap in different places to get the bridge to come down so it can make it to this next part, and then move the snake out of the way or whatever it happens to be. So
I feel like you're going to do a lot of clicking on the screen.
You will do a lot of tapping or clicking for this game.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the whole point of it. But it's a lot of fun. So that's my pick.
Very nice. Mr. Andy Anako, your pick of the week.
Mine is a game. My gaming is 100% casual. I'm not the person who spends 4 weeks in Red Dead Redemption or GTA or something like that. I'm the person who dives into a game for 10, 15, 20 minutes when I just need a little bit of like relaxation, something I can just like zone out with. And a developer by the name of Kyle Silvestre has adapted a Windows a game that originally was famous because it was part of a Windows XP like gaming pack. It's Astro Pinball. Another developer
I played it on Windows. It's available now on the Mac.
Somebody decompiled it like a few months ago, made the assets available. So he has recompiled it as like an iOS game, and it is just
it's very realistic. Yeah,
it is. The physics are perfect. And like I love this on Windows. I used to play it on Windows. Oh, I'm so glad it's out. And it's just wonderful. It's exactly the sort of game I like, where it's just, again, my bus or my train is like a little bit late, so I can just play pinball for like 10 or 15 minutes. Like all pinball games, like real pinball, the table never changes. It's just so mesmerizing to get the flippers to time perfectly, shoot it through the ramps perfectly. The noise is mesmerizing, and the great thing about this is that it has the same advantage of an app like on the game store. Excuse me, on Apple Arcade. It is free. There are no ads, no tracking, no nothing. It's like a tiny file. And make sure that you look for the one by Kyle Silvestre, Astro Pinball, because this game package was like decompiled and put up for free, like to the developer, the GitHub community a while ago. I think there are a couple of them like on the Google Play Store and elsewhere where it is like pay to play, or it does have like ad tracking or whatever. But Kyle Silvestre has been like recompiling and building this for every platform he can find. Works on the iPad, works on the iPhone. If you got a keyboard, the keyboard will like work with as flipper buttons. It works with Game Center so that you can have your high scores. You can cheat and bump the side of the machine. As I said, as a free game, it'll give you like 12 to 18 minutes of much entertainment twice a month for the next 12 years.
I just installed it. I think it's the real deal, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's just perfect. Like, and I can't believe that this is such an old game because the physics are perfect. Like, there's something what I love about it is that they didn't try. Oh, what if we do fancy camera moves where like a virtual camera tracks the ball? Like, no, let me be standing over this table like I'm at at a Candlepin Bowling Center, like one town over from my house.
It's very
that had
realistic.
an arcade attached to it.
It's so great.
This is by the way, like Alex, this is the only reason why like I'm ever really tempted to get like a VR headset. Because they actually sell, like for Quest and for other platforms, like a controller that is just simply like the front end of a pinball machine, like with the flipper buttons on the side, and you have a pinball app like in VR. So when you look down, you are seeing like the virtual pinball machine like in front of you. But in the real world, you're actually feeling the sides of this machine. You're pulling the plunger like for real. And I'm like, I tried that a couple of times, and I'm like, okay, I understand why you spent $800 for this headset. understand why you spent $400 for this controller, because this is perfect.
Andy, the next time you're out here, we're going to the Pacific Pinball Museum, which is in Alameda. It has from the very first ones all the way to the most modern ones. It's just room after room after room of pinball.
I kind of only need Adam's Family. That'll give me for first 18 hours, and then if there's time left, we'll check the other ones.
You think that until you start playing them. I found that my sweet spot is the late 70s. So
that's kind of fun to know your era.
My era that I enjoy. Now I admit that my dad had a client that couldn't pay him, so he paid him with a pinball machine. And so there was a Paragon.
I need more clients like that.
Pinball machine stuffed with drug money.
Yeah, he paid him with pills. We had a Paragon in the basement. It's still there. I mean, we still go down and play it. But so I grew up with that, and it's late 70s. Completely inappropriate. As a father, when you go down, you're like, ooh, I don't know if those graphics were really the right thing. But I found that what I like is a certain level of complexity, but not so much complexity. And but I found that because I play, my daughter and I went and we played for 3 or 4 hours, just moving through the decades of stuff. It's really cool.
Instead of asking what's your sign, your astrology,
what's your era?
What's your
pinball era? You can learn a lot.
I just want to hear Raul Julia yell, "Extra ball!" That's it, thing. Lend a hand.
Oh! Alex Lindsay, your pick of the week.
So the camera on your phone, the front-facing one to you, not a very good camera. And so, but we take all these selfies like this with
that camera.
Can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
What SmallRig has released is this little monitor here. Now you may be wondering, what is this monitor showing? It's showing my phone. So this is it's AirPlaying.
Anthony just bought it.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It's AirPlaying to the monitor.
What?
And this monitor,
it's an AirPlay display?
Oh yeah. No. Wait. Watch this. I got a little magic for you here.
It glues on.
Oh, it's MagSafe.
It's MagSafe.
So now you can.
I gotta get this. Oh.
Yeah. This was. We were talking about it in office hours, and literally while people were talking about it, I was like, I ordered another one. I ordered the first one. Here's the worst part in office hours. Someone brings up it's called Snaply. Don't buy that one. It's from China. You can buy it quicker on Amazon.
Get it from the good people. SmallRig. These people are good.
The SmallRig one's a little thicker. It also has a quarter 20 on the bottom.
Oh, nice.
So you can just attach it to something as well. And so now you can go like this, and you can, and especially $64 or $65.
I'm blown away how cheap it is.
And it's a great little monitor, a little bit of lag, but if you're doing a selfie, it doesn't matter. And it's just, if you want to use the 48 megapixel, if you want to use the 0.5, like kids, my daughter can do the 0.5 by herself, like without a monitor, but I can't. So cause you have to get the head right in the center unless you want it to stretch. So this, it will mirror it over. Now, what I'm using it for is that I want to be able to do interviews in the field with Zoom where the person interviewing is on the monitor. and so I want to be able to, walk it up and be able to do that. And so I got it for that, but for a selfie or for anything else where you want to use the better lenses, it's pretty magical, and it totally works. So anyway, it's pretty slick. What it does is it shows you a QR code. It has you join its Wi-Fi, and then at that point, it just shows up as a monitor, and so it's not, connecting to the internet.
So it's not an app that you have to.
There's no app.
That's cool.
You just join its Wi-Fi and then jump onto it, and you're off to the races.
I'm thinking I can have a writer deck with a 2-screen display for added productivity.
Yeah, there you go.
I can have my markdown on one screen and have my reference control on the other.
I'm sure we can think of a lot of other uses for it, but this is
cool.
Yeah, really, really, and
for that
I was
price,
surprised.
oh my goodness, yeah,
exactly. If it was much more than that.
But it's a nice thing to have. Yeah.
So I'm pretty impressed with it.
And SmallRig does good stuff. I have a lot of SmallRig stuff.
I've got a lot of SmallRig stuff.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone who was building this really cool tripod rig, a super high end little head for cameras to make them really easy to put together. And I was like, the problem you really have with this, if you get out to the market with this, is how long can you sell it before Small Rig builds it? Because they're gonna
Good point.
they're gonna build it like really well, and
they're gonna do it nice
and
cast aluminum and
Oh, this is the Snappily one, which is pretty much the same, a little thinner. The problem with this one is that, again, it's more expensive.
Oh,
it is a little thinner, and it took forever to get here, and this was like a day, So Anyway, there's two different ones, but buy the Small Rig one; it's better.
Next U.S. batch ships June 27th, so it won't take a day. But
wow,
yeah,
I think maybe we sold.
They're cranking them out as fast as they can.
I think Office Hours bought a lot of them.
I think you just wiped out the supply.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because it was a day. Oh, check Amazon as well, because Amazon might have some in stock. But we have done that in the past with Office Hours. Is we get something that's under $100 that we get excited about, and like 100 people buy it or 200 people buy it, and they're not used to that. So.
I hope the same thing happens for my new clock. I don't know if you can see it. Unfortunately it's a little blurred out because the camera's focused on me. So let me scooch back a little bit to show you this. Alex, you could almost use this as a clapper. This is
right.
The Mixela.
It's so accurate.
It's accurate to the thousandth of a second, and it really is because it's using GPS. There's a GPS receiver, which I put in the window. So, and then look at this. This will also turn into like this. Then you could do it like a big, long bar clock with the date accurate to the GPS and the time accurate to the thousandth of a second. And the reason it's so accurate is because GPS is that accurate. But what's cool about it is if it doesn't get a GPS signal, it's smart enough to shut down to just the seconds.
Right. Like, I don't know what's going on here.
It's really a cool clock. This is where I got it. I saw a YouTube video about the guy who built it. The guy is insane. He builds these for YouTube, and then I guess he sells them, which is amazing. Wasn't cheap. I got it assembled. If you have soldering skills, you can get it for £250 British. For me, it was a little more expensive. Oh, out of stock. But he's making them, so he's gonna make more. I think I was expecting to wait a few months for this, and I think he must have seen that I ordered it and sent me a quick one. By the way, notice it's not flickering on our cameras. That's because it's 330 hertz.
Wow.
Look at that.
Whoa.
So that's pretty good.
That's a lot of hertz.
That's a lot of hertz.
Hertz,
it's
don't
smart
it?
enough to rotate the date. You close it, which is super cool.
Yeah, that is neat. I like that.
Look at that. Anyway, people love the clocks on our set. Apparently, they use the clocks to figure out how long they've been working out or something. So I've got a new clock that's even more accurate.
I love the business model of I'm going to give you instructions and tell you where to buy all the stuff, but I'll still make one for you and charge you for it if you want it.
Because he's a hobbyist.
But I'll, like, if you want to make it, here's all the stuff. But if you don't want to go through, if time is more valuable than money, then I'll make you one.
That's good marketing, because you look at the instructions and say, oh my God, look how much work this person is doing into actually assembling and shipping this, and he only wants to be paid like $4 an hour for his labor?
I don't mind. I absolutely don't mind paying the $500.
I look at a lot of those things. I go, I can do this myself, and then I look at the instructions. I think part of the instructions is the flex, like you could, but would you?
Yeah.
Or is this going to be another one of those boxes that's sitting on your desk going, someday I'm going to solder this together,
Oh my God.
Alex,
don't. What are you doing looking into my office, Alex? What are you talking about?
I have an office just like it.
There is
if you're intrigued, you should subscribe to his Mozilla YouTube site, which has 222,000 subscribers. So I'm not telling people something that doesn't exist, because he does a lot of really interesting projects. And so I'm very grateful. Thank you for, I don't know his name. I wish I did. But thank you, Ms. Mozilla, for sending me.
Guy.
Yeah, it's in his email. I just can't find his email. But thank you for sending it to me so quickly. And I'm very happy. I told him to put it on the set and then show it off. So I'm doing that right now. And I just have to figure out how to put it somewhere where it stays in focus. That's the only problem. Because
split diopter.
Yeah, that's what I need, a split diopter.
Just for the clock.
That's what I need. If anybody sells it,
maybe he can make you one with like tiny little like 7-segment LEDs, and you can do like a forced perspective sort of thing, and just like put it like right next to your face, only lined up so it looks like it's standing on top of the IMSI.
Yeah, a little bit of Leaning Tower of Pisa situation.
Somebody's asked if it has a brightness control. It definitely does. I don't know how to control it, but as I get closer to it, it dims.
Wait, how?
I don't know. It's magic.
What? It's got a proximity sensor?
I think it has an ambient light sensor, is my guess. But I'm sure the details on the Mitzela Precision Clock Mark IV.
Oh, wow. 4 generations.
Oh, he's been making these for a while. GPS synchronized millisecond display that doesn't flicker even when filmed at 25,000 frames per second.
Which you often do.
I do all the time. And I really love the accuracy on this. Oh, there is a user manual. There we go. It has lots of additional features that I don't know about. It has a bunch of date formats, time formats. Of course, this guy's the ultimate geek. It has USB serial output, so you can connect it up and start typing commands to it. It is the ultimate geek gadget, and it just looks like a clock. That's the amazing thing. There's a whole GitHub repo dedicated to this clock with firmware images and everything. It's about time I had a clock that I could update the firmware. Anyway, very nice. Yes, it does plug in USB-C on the back, but it has it's a USB. It's an older USB. It's the micro USB, but it does have a coin back. Well, you probably have a few of those cables. I'm never going to unplug it, so that's that.
Not like I have to recharge it. Yeah.
That's the one thing that's disappointed me.
Oh, come on, man!
Everything else has been amazing.
I had a lot of those lying around. Anyway, isn't that amazing? Look at that. That is guaranteed accurate. Guaranteed.
By whom?
By Mr. GPS.
Okay, but when you're talking about like thousands of a second, do you have to factor in the latency of the display?
The truth is, it's going so fast. The last digit I can't read. It's just always on.
You have to find a thing when you test like high frame rate. You have to find something to record it that's a higher frame rate. So,
nice.
So like if I do 120 frames per second, I actually use my phone because I can record it.
Right. What records at more than 330 hertz? That's the question.
You have to get something. A Blackmagic 12K will do 4K or do I think 1080p at 480. So that's what we'll have to.
I wonder if I take a picture of it, would it freeze frame it?
It might freeze frame it, but it won't. Like you're getting it. Your sample is so much lower than
No, it doesn't. It's still an 8. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Not as cool as yours, Alex, but it's up there. Mitzela is how you pronounce it. MITXELA.com. The Mark IV.
That's awesome.
Which just came yesterday, and I'm so excited about it. Thank you all so much. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You can watch us live. If you're in the club, of course, you can get the Behind the Velvet Rope access in the Club TWiT Discord, but you don't need to be a club member to watch live. There's YouTube, Twitch, X.com, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. 7 different places you can watch and chat with us. After the fact, the show is available online at our website, twit.tv/mbw. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to the videos, so a good way to share clips. If you want to do that, you're welcome to do that. Help spread the word. Also, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client. That way you get it automatically, right? That's Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, whatever you like. But do us a favor. If you do that, also give us a 5-star review so you can spread the word. We need more people to know what a great show this is. And we thank you for knowing that and being here. Thank you, Andy Inatko, inatko.com. Soon, IHNATKO.com. And you're on Blue Sky at the same IHNATKO. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. Did you put the after hours on the YouTube?
It's up there, extra hours. So the after hours, which we did during the show, that's just internal, kind of like yours.
Okay.
It's just after hours in Zoom. And then the external discussion, extra hours, is definitely up there. So you're looking for the extra hours from yesterday. It'll say WWDC on it, probably the second or third video from the beginning. And because we do so many. But
You've already done more after that. That's
well, we
amazing.
did one this morning, so we talked about it a little bit this morning too. So
Office
but extra
Hours Global on the YouTube, not just Office Hours. You got the Office Hours. Oh, well, you know what? This good news is it's pinned right to the top, the WWDC 25 breakdown. So easy to find.
Yeah, great.
And I think he is in a Vision Pro, that guy. Even though
it's just his shot.
just his shot looks like he's in a Vision Pro. Hey, that's a cool thing. Did people? Yeah, it does look like he's kind of in the Vision Pro.
We did,
anyway,
we
really
did an
cool.
all Vision Pro extra hours, and now that the new we're going to give it a couple of weeks to settle
for everybody
in,
to have it,
and then, but there's enough of us that have Vision Pros that I think we'll do an all Vision
really
Pro.
cool.
We've done it once before with the first one, and now it'd be great to see the new avatars be updated.
Do a head-to-head comparison.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah.
officehours.global and of course 090.media if you want to hire Alex. There is nobody better to do your next event. Mr. Mikah Sargent is going to be back on Tech News Weekly on Thursday. And then, of course, every other week for iOS Today, although if you subscribe, you'll get it every week. And from time to time on other shows, we really love having you on. Oh, and of course, Micah's Crafting Corner next week. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely.
With the
Don't
club
forget.
members. I will bring my vibe coding, and it'll have a
There you
chill
go.
vibe thanks to you.
Chill vibes. That's what we strive for, at least.
Thank you, Micah, for being here. Jason Snell will be
Absolutely.
back next
Pleasure.
week. We can rib him about his failure in the upgrade draft. I hope you will all be back next week too. But now it is my sad and solemn duty to tell you you've got to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye. From Silicon Valley boardrooms to tomorrow's AI breakthroughs, if you need to keep up to date with tech, you need TWiT.tv. At TWiT, we are tech experts who understand what's happening and can keep you in the loop. And we do it in a thoughtful, informed, and fun way. Start your Sundays with This Week in Tech, a roundtable of tech journalists and people in the know with a rundown of the week's most important tech news. But that's not all. All week long, you can stay ahead of security threats with Steve Gibson and Security Now. Keep up on all things Apple with MacBreak Weekly. Listen to the most informed Microsoft experts in the world with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell on Windows Weekly. Our flagship shows feature tech's most respected voices, giving you the insight you need to understand and benefit from the changing world of technology. We give you analysis you won't find anywhere else, so you can make smarter business decisions and take advantage of the technologies transforming your world. Whether you're a CEO, IT professional, or simply passionate about technology, TWiT's network of shows gives you the edge you need in today's digital landscape. Don't miss a minute. Subscribe to TWiT.tv today.